All right, what's up, everybody? So we've got a relatively big slate to walk through today, so I don't want to take too much time before we jump in, but do just want to say I appreciate those of you who have been watching these videos and giving some feedback, whether it's here or on Twitter. Um, the NBA is a little bit of a mess right now. All this COVID stuff is going crazy. I think it's probably going to continue to be crazy for the next week or so. Maybe we got people going out, people coming back in. There's more. I mean, I got more news over the last couple minutes while I was getting ready to record this that makes it really hard to cap. But at the same time, I think if we can stay on top of things, it could create some good opportunities as well. So anyway, hope we can get you some good info here and you can use that to make some good decisions tonight. So let's go ahead and jump in as we've got a lot of games to get through. First one tonight is Miami Heat playing at the Orlando Magic. And this one started out when I first looked, I think Miami was like -3 or -3.5. Now it's up to Miami -7.5, I believe. And one of the big reasons for that is that Franz Wagner is out now in the COVID protocols. And if you look at Orlando's roster, it's really like most of the team that's either out or a game time decision. You got Cole Anthony, Mo Bamba. I mean, a lot of the main people for Orlando. So this is a team that's already bad. And now on top of this, they have most of their best players either out or possibly out. Obviously, Miami still has Butler and Adebayo out. They've been out for a long time. We know that. I was looking at the numbers since they've been out, and Miami still had a 110.8 offensive rating, so really not bad. But they've had a 114.8 defensive rating, so they haven't been playing real great on defense. However, their defense has been a lot better in the last 6 games. I think Miami is figuring out a little bit how to play without Butler and Adebayo. Lowry's stepping up. You got Gabe Vincent stepping up. I think Miami is one of these teams where you see this when people go out, like you saw this with the Hornets, where they'll have a bad game here and there, but when key pieces go out, they figure out how to play and how to make it work without those key pieces. So I think Miami's doing that and turning a little bit of a corner with their main guys out. Orlando's lost 6 of the last 7 to Miami straight up. Miami has won 3 of their last 5, which is actually surprised me when I went back and looked at that. I didn't expect them to be winning that much. And the 2 teams they lost to were Cleveland and Memphis, which is not a big deal. I mean, those are 2 teams who have been playing phenomenal. So really not a big deal. In terms of key stats here, one of the ones that I'd look at is if Miami can shoot 40% or better from 3. So when they shoot 40% or better, they're 9-0. And they've done this in all 3 of their recent wins. So they've actually been shooting the ball really well. Orlando allows teams to shoot about 35.6% from three-point range at home, but they've allowed over 40% from three-point range in 4 out of their last 5. And so I think this does look potentially like a good spot for Miami to be able to put in some work on offense. Looking at the trends, again, I won't go through all of them, but I did see some lean in the trends toward the under here. Which I don't hate, although it, again, gets really hard to cap how many points Orlando's going to score being at home with all these people out. I will say Orlando doesn't score the ball well at home in general, 96.2 points a game on the year. They've been under 107 of their last 9 at home. So as you look at this game, I think a couple spots to watch, or you could look at Miami against the spread now. You could also hope Orlando can make a little bit of a run and get a better number on Miami Live. I think you could also look at Orlando's team total under. I mean, with Wagner going out, and especially if Cole Anthony sits, I don't know what they're doing on offense. It could be a really rough night for them. And Miami has been playing a little bit better defense, so you could consider the team total there. Those are a couple things I like okay on that game. I don't have anything in on it yet, but those are a couple decent spots. Next game is the Golden State Warriors and the Boston Celtics. This is a game that should be a lot of fun, but again, here we're getting the news of people being out. So just in the last half hour, I saw that Jordan Poole is probably going to be out for the Warriors tonight. That definitely takes some offense away from them potentially. On Boston's side, you have Al Horford, who is out now, which he's been playing great for Boston this year. So I think that is not a great thing for Boston that he's out. You also have Grant Williams, Jabari Parker. Those guys are out for Boston. They're more role players. But again, it doesn't help much to have these guys out. But let's dive into the numbers anyway, even though we got some people out here. So Golden State's defense in the last month, they've really struggled on offense away from home, but their defense has remained solid. The most that they've allowed in the last month is 112 points, but they've held teams under 108 times. So while you look at their most recent games away from home and they're only scoring in the 90s or the low hundreds, they're only giving up 100 points a game or so too. So really playing some great defense. Boston, on the other hand, has been scoring the ball a lot better. They sucked on offense the first half of the season. They've been doing better in the last month, but they're still really inconsistent. So you do have to be careful with these ups and downs. But I will say their average over the last month has been 109.4 points a game. That's a significant step up from where they've been. And so I like their offense to be able to get some work done here. The key stat that I'm looking at is 3-point percentage for both of these teams. It's actually really interesting how both of them have to hit these certain marks to do well in their games. And so it's going to be a little bit of a war of 3-pointers tonight. On the Golden State side, when they hit 34.1% or better from 3-point range, they're 16-2 straight up. 15 of the 16 wins are by 3 or more, and 14 of the 16 are by 7 or more. So they have gone under that number of 34.1 in 3 of the last 5 and 5 of the last 10. So it's not a given that they're going to hit this 3-point percentage. Boston only allows 33.8% at home, so it's just slightly under that 34.1. They've given up the 34.1 in 2 out of the last 5 and 4 out of the last 10. So we're looking at like 50-50, especially on the road here for Golden State to hit that. On the Boston side, their key number is similar. It's 34% from 3-point range. When they go over that number since mid-November, they're 8-1. And when they go under that number, they're 0-6. So obviously this isn't the only thing that matters, but basically for the last month, if they hit this number, they win. And if they don't, they lose. So what are we looking at tonight? Well, Golden State allows teams to shoot 33.6% from 3-point range away from home. So right around that 34. They've allowed over 34% only in 1 of the last 5 games, though they have allowed it in 5 out of the last 10. And they've allowed it in 5 out of 12 on the road. So a little bit under 50%. Boston, in terms of shooting, they've hit this mark in 2 out of their last 5 and 5 out of their last 10. So this is a game where it's a little tough to call because I think both teams need to get to the same place and both teams are doing it about 50% of the time. So I could see this being a game that's kind of back and forth, maybe lower scoring, especially if the teams are playing good defense. And that's why I would say that I do kind of prefer Boston with the points here, mostly because I think in a close game, I'll take the points if you're going to give them to me. And Golden State really just hasn't shown the same offensive prowess on the road. They've scored 96, 102, 93, 96, and 105 in their last 5 on the road. Like, yeah, they could break out their Golden State, but it just hasn't been a lot to be afraid of. And the last thing I'll say is when you look at the trends, there is definitely a lean toward the under with the trends in this game as well. So if you do like that direction, there's some support there historically, and I think there's some support in the numbers here recently. So that's the Warriors and the Celtics. Next game up is Denver versus Atlanta. This game, at least so far, not any massive injury news, the people or COVID news. The people who are out are people who have been out, so there's not a lot to talk about there. Denver has been a totally different team at home and on the road. At home, they generally play really good defense, though they didn't in their last game. But in general, allowing under 100 points a game. But on the road, they've allowed 112, 123, 105, 109. They did have a 99, but they're allowing upwards of 100 points and even up to 120 pretty regularly. They also were scoring a little bit better, though. They're scoring 107 on average on the road, and 105 is their average for the season. So Denver plays a little bit higher scoring games on the road than they do at home. On the Atlanta side, in their last 5 at home, they're actually 0-5 in their last 5. This was another thing that was shocking to me. I knew Atlanta had been struggling a little bit, but it felt like they had turned the corner a little bit as a team. And early on in the season, they played well at home and bad away, but now they're 0-5. Now, they have been scoring the ball okay, especially in the last 3, 126, 105, 127, but they're giving up a ton of points. They've given up over 130 in 2 of their last 3 at home. So I don't know what's going on with them, if it's having these wings out that hurts them on defense, but they are really struggling on defense at home. In terms of some key numbers here, a big one for Denver is hitting 50% on their field goal percentage. They've hit this in 4 of the last 10. Atlanta's only allowed it in 1 of the last 10. And when Denver hits that number, I think they're either undefeated or they've lost one. And when they're under that number in the last month, I think they haven't won. So they may struggle to get to that 50% based on what the stats are saying. The other big one is Denver holding teams under 45% from the field. And Atlanta's gone over that in 6 of their last 10. And Denver's actually allowed it in 9 of their last 10. And so on these key numbers, I think there is a lean toward Atlanta here today for sure, even though Atlanta has not been playing well at home. And that would be the caution or the warning there on leaning too hard toward Atlanta. However, I do think that this is a better spot for Atlanta than it is for Denver. And if I had to lean one way, that's the way I would go. When we look at the trends, there definitely is a lean toward the over here. And even based on the statistics with Denver playing higher scoring games at home, I do like the over a little bit here. Not sure. I don't think I've taken anything on it yet, but I think this is one of the first spots I'd say seems really pretty good to me on the card. Let's see. The total's gone over in 5 of Denver's last 5 and 9 of their last 10 away from home. So Denver is playing over games when they go away from home. And I think the fact that they score less at home maybe gives us a little bit of reduced lines when we see them play away. So I think that's a good spot. And then again, the trends do lean a little bit toward Atlanta in what I looked at. Not a ton, but that would be the way they're leaning, if any. So next game is the Milwaukee Bucks and the New Orleans Pelicans. The Pelicans fresh off that 61-foot three-pointer at the buzzer that won me a New Orleans -2 bet. We get a lot of bad luck betting sometimes, bad bounces, but got to acknowledge when they go our way too. And that was one that absolutely went my way. And I am grateful for that and understand that it was pretty lucky. But that was a sweet game. So this one we got to talk about injuries again, unfortunately. So Milwaukee, we already knew that they were without Giannis and without DiVincenzo and Lopez. Now they're also going to be without Portis tonight. What that means is that Milwaukee has almost no size left. I mean, I just named pretty much all of their big guys who play inside. They did pick up DeMarcus Cousins. So if you're into like DFS or even maybe player props, Cousins could be someone to look at tonight because he's going to have to play. They just don't have anyone else to play inside. If you look at Giannis, Portis, and Lopez, this is just driving home this deal about the pieces they have inside. Giannis averages 11.6 rebounds a game. Next best is Portis with 9. Next best is Lopez with 5. So their top 3 rebounders are going to be out tonight, and no one else averages 5 a game. Blocks per game, it's similar. Giannis averages 1.6, Portis averages 1, and Lopez averages 3. Nobody else averages more than 0.8. So they're without these bigs inside, and it's really going to hurt them on the boards and on interior defense. I think this potentially could be a big night for Jonas Valanciunas. I don't know who's going to stop him in the post if he'll go down there and play down there. It's also going to allow New Orleans to get to the bucket if they want to, I think. I mean, Drew Holiday's a good defender. It's not that Milwaukee doesn't have anyone, but they're not going to have anyone inside. One of the interesting things is if you look at the 4 games that the Bucks have been without Giannis, their offensive rating with him is 111.6, but their offensive rating without him is 117.3. So significantly better on offense. On defense, their defensive rating with him is 107.9, and without him, it's 111. So they're not doing as well on defense with him out. This is going to be important because I think one of the things that we can look at in this game is the over. The Pelicans' offensive rating is 110.3 at home. We know that they're not a great team, but I would say because of all the people that are out, they are in a great spot tonight, and they do play better on offense when they're at home. So this is a spot where I don't hate the Pelicans necessarily, though every time I pick against the Bucks without all their people, they end up screwing me. So I'm not sure I'm going to go that direction, but I think this is a spot where the over looks pretty good as well. One of the key stats here is that New Orleans allows teams to shoot 35.5% from three-point range at home, and Milwaukee is 14-1 when they shoot over 35.5. So if they can get their three-point shooters going, I think this can be a good spot for them to score some points at least. And that's where, again, I would lean a little bit to the over. The trends overall were pretty neutral on this, but one thing that I did see is that 9 of the last 10 meetings between these two teams have gone over the total. So there is a strong recent trend in this specific matchup for the over. And then in the trends, they leaned a little bit toward New Orleans in terms of the spread. Not incredibly strong, but that was the direction, if any, that they went. All right, that's the Bucks and the Pelicans. On to the next one, which is the Spurs and the Jazz. This one, at least so far, we don't have tons of injury or COVID news. Lonnie Walker is still going to be out, which, it's nice to have him, but I don't think it's really that big of a deal. The Spurs generally have played better at home, though they did have a nice little stretch of away games before their most recent homestand. In their last 5 away, they've scored 104, 112, 114, and then they had a couple in the 90s, but those were in mid-November. And so they have been scoring a little bit better on the road than they were previously. They've upped it from in the 90s to like the 1-teens even. So that looks good for them. However, they are 2-9-1 to the over when they're away from home. So their games generally go under when they're on the road. The Jazz, on the other hand, are 9-5 to the over at home. So their games tend to go over. And man, if you look at the Jazz lately, they've just been slaying it, especially on offense. 124, 137, 129, 127. And then they had a 97. Those are their last 5 at home. I mean, this is a team that is just out of their mind on offense right now. And that, I would assume that's going to slow down a little bit at some point. But man, I don't know if we want to ride the hot streak here, So a couple key stats. The first one is San Antonio's field goal percentage. When it's under 45, they're 3-10. When it's over 45, actually, I don't have over 45, but it's been over 45 in 7 of their last 10. So they have been shooting better than 45% a lot of the time. And Utah allows 44.5% shooting at home. So it's right around that 45 number. Utah, on the other hand, they are best when they have a field goal percentage of 50 or better. They're 10-0 in their last 10 when they hit that 50 mark. And here's the key, because this spread's really big. I think it's like 10.5, and maybe it's even moved from there, or 11.5. So this is key, is that in those 10 victories where they get to 50% field goal percentage, their average margin of victory is 21 points. So they have been covering even that massive spread when they get to that key number in terms of field goal percentage. However, San Antonio's only allowed over 50% from the field in 2 out of their last 10, but those 2 games were in the last 3, so it's 2 out of the last 3. So this game overall, it just feels like one of those where the stats are a little bit cloudy. I do look at the trends a little bit here too, and the trends definitely lean toward the over. And I do like the over okay here. San Antonio's been playing fast and scoring more. I might even just look at the Jazz over. I think it's pretty high. It's like 114.5 or 115.5. But again, like I said, in 4 out of their last 5, they've been scoring in the upper 120s or better. So I don't know that San Antonio offers them tons of resistance on defense. So I think that there is the possibility of a lot of points being scored in this game. And that might be the spot that I like best in this game, at least. Next game, this is what I'm excited for, and I think there's some good spots in this one. So this is the Charlotte Hornets and the Portland Trailblazers. I mean, shoot, Charlotte's been on fire, right? And they're super fun to watch. They play a ton of offense. They don't play a lot of defense. Now, this is going to be interesting with Charlotte because, they've had everybody out, but now they have people coming back. And even LaMelo Ball might be back tonight. And so a bunch of other teams have people going into COVID protocols, and they have people coming out of COVID protocols. Something to watch. So, man, here's some crazy numbers. These blew my mind when I ran them. So in the last 6 games away from home for Charlotte, their average points scored is 122.7. Their average points allowed is 125.8. And the average total in their last 6 away from home has been 248.5 points. Now, I think the over-under tonight is like 230.5, which seems really high. We haven't seen many totals in the 230s. But keep that in mind that they've still been beating that by 18 points a game on average in their last 6 away. Portland, on the other side, they've got Dame Lillard back. It hasn't translated into any wins. They are on a 7-game losing streak, 6 in a row at home. Their only win in the last 11 was against Detroit, so you can barely count it. So Portland is a team that's not playing well. But if you look at their scoring numbers, in their last 5 at home, they've scored an average of 104.6. Not fantastic, right? But they've allowed 115.6, which is pretty high. And they haven't played any teams that are the offensive caliber of Charlotte. I mean, there aren't many teams that are the offensive caliber of Charlotte right now. I think the one thing that can slow Charlotte down is what we saw in that Dallas game, where there are a lot of bigs and they can really pack things in and crush the pace. And that's just not what Portland does. And so Portland, I don't think, is going to be able to slow them down the same way Dallas did. The average total in Portland's last 5 home games has been 220.2. So that's about 10 below where the total is tonight. But remember, they're going up against Charlotte, and that changes things. So the matchup that we have tonight, it's actually the two teams with the worst defensive ratings in the league. Charlotte's defensive rating is worst at 114.8, and Portland's is next at 113. So this is like a trash defense game, which means it should be great for offense. And Charlotte has the number 3 offense in the league with an offensive rating of 114. Portland's is number 14 with a rating of 109.7, and that's even been worse lately. So this is a game that I definitely have interested in. I'm interested in the over. I'm also interested in Charlotte's team total over 114.5. I think if the over misses, I would expect it to be because Portland isn't able to get things going, and Dame has another night where he's like 2 for 15 from 3. And Portland, that might not happen. Like, I could see the over hitting here for sure. But if it doesn't, I feel like it would be more on the Portland side than the Charlotte side. So I am interested in Charlotte's team total. And I am also a little bit interested in Charlotte themselves. I mean, they laid that huge egg against Dallas, but other than that, they've been playing well, and Portland hasn't. The trends here, if you're going to look at them, they lean to the over some. Actually, the trends do. And the trends lean really strong towards Charlotte, actually. This is maybe the most overwhelming in terms of the trends I looked at, leaning towards Charlotte over Portland. So I do like Charlotte here, and I do like the over and looking at Charlotte's team total as well. So that should be a fun one. If you like offense, tune in for that game tonight. All right, appreciate all of you who are watching along here. Again, feel free to leave any comments. Let me know what you're thinking. If you have any questions or anything, happy to see those and appreciate you watching. We got a few more games here. On to the Memphis Grizzlies and the Sacramento Kings. We got to head back to the injury and COVID news here. So for Memphis, it's what we already know: Ja Morant, Clark, the people that have been out. But Sacramento, on the other hand, is another team that has like half of their team either out or game time decision. So De'Aaron Fox is doubtful. Alex Len is doubtful. Halliburton is doubtful. Holmes is doubtful. Another team that is going to be really struggling with any kind of size on the inside with both Holmes and Len out. And that is going to be a huge problem against Memphis. I'm not going to go into all the stats again today, but you know that I am totally enamored by the Memphis Grizzlies defense since Ja Morant went out. By the numbers, it's better than at least any other team on the season's defense. It's just like one of the best defenses in the league since Morant went out. And they're going up against a Sacramento team that now that has no presence inside. And one of the key things that Memphis does is they're the best rebounding team in the league, so they don't give you extra chances. And now Sacramento is going to be without their 2 biggest guys, and they're going to be missing a lot of rebounding. When Sacramento's gone up against any of the top 8 rebounding teams in the league this year, they're 3-6 in those games and generally getting blown out. 2 of the wins were against the Pelicans. So like the Pelicans rebound well, but we know they're not a good team. Same when Sacramento goes up against the top 8 defensive teams with defensive rating. They're 3-6, and 5 of the 6 losses were by 6 or more. So I think this is a terrible spot for Sacramento tonight. If Memphis shows up the way they've been showing up, it's going to be trouble. Sacramento, when they play teams like this, their ceiling in terms of points is about 113. With all these people out, I don't know that they can even get to that. And so it is important to note that Memphis has scored less on the road than they have at home. So they've been dominant defensively in both cases. At home, I got these switched. So at home, they've scored 114.2 on average and away 103.3. So 11 less points scored. But at home, they've allowed 99.4 and on the road, only 93.5. I mean, they're allowing 93.5 points a game on the road. Just filthy. So a couple spots I like here. I do like Memphis. I think the line is getting a little wide. I think it's up to 6.5 now. I probably still like it. I also think I might hope for Sacramento to go on a little bit of a run to be able to get something that's a little lower. That is a wide spread with a team that hasn't been scoring a lot on the road. But I also like Sacramento's team total under. Last I checked, it was at 107.5. And again, with all these guys out, with a stingy defense, with no second chances with Memphis rebounding, I think Sacramento's going to struggle to get to 107 even. So I definitely like that spot quite a bit. When we look at the trends actually do have a decent lean here toward the under and toward Memphis. So, looking through all the data, that's definitely the way that I would lean. And then I see the trends kind of going the same way. And so I think this is a game that we could target. The question is just, do we want to take it at the spread that's out there now, or do we want to try to get something a little bit better? All right, last game of the night, the Lakers and the Timberwolves. Man, after doing the research, was ready to say this is a great spot for the Minnesota Timberwolves. Bradley's out, Taylor Horton-Tucker's out, Howard's out, Westbrook is out. I mean, obviously they have Davis and LeBron, and those guys can always do work, but they've got nothing around them. And honestly, like watching that last Lakers game against Dallas, they were so lucky to win that. And I had a bet on them for that too, so I'm glad they did, but it was not impressive in any way. Their offense looked trashy. Their defense was not that solid. But then we just got the news in the last, a little bit before I came on here that Anthony Edwards is out for Minnesota. Now, he had the game of his life in his last game, hit 10 threes. Obviously wouldn't expect him to do that again. He's not a phenomenal shooter, but he adds a ton of athleticism. He's another scorer on the floor for the Timberwolves, and they need those scorers. They don't have tons of them. And so I think that's a pretty big hit to Minnesota for tonight. I will say one of the things that's hopeful for Minnesota is that D'Angelo Russell should be playing. And it's hard to see D'Angelo Russell as some kind of phenomenal player. He's made a big difference for the Wolves. With him, they're scoring 5 more points a game than without him. They're allowing 18 less. Their offensive rating is 7 points better, and their defensive rating is 14 points better. So it's just a few game sample size, but Russell, and we've been pointing this out on these streams, right? Like one of the first questions with the Timberwolves is D'Angelo Russell playing? Because they're a different team. I mean, it's there in the numbers, but you can just see it when they're playing too. They're the same trashy team from the last few years when he's not out there, but then when he plays, they've been good. So the question is, can they be good without Anthony Edwards? And I'm not sure of the answer to that. I definitely don't like losing a scorer there. I do think without Anthony Edwards and without Russell Westbrook, this game could be slower. LeBron James, when he's running point, I mean, he'll push it if he gets a chance, but more often than not, he's walking the ball up the floor, dribbling around, moving the ball. Towns is not an especially fast player, and they're going to have to rely on him more. So I think this game could be a little bit slow, and that's where I would probably at least look at the under. The trends actually lean toward the under as well. The Lakers have been under in 5 out of their last 5 games. Now, Minnesota has been over in 5 out of their last 5. So, take that with a grain of salt. But in the overall trends that I looked at, it did lean that way some. And then the trends also lean toward Minnesota. Minnesota's 7-1 straight up in their last 8 at home against the Lakers. So they've had some good success against the Lakers, but obviously these rosters are not full rosters, and so we have to take that with a little bit of a grain of salt. In looking at this game, if I was going to pick, I mean, I still do lean toward the Timberwolves. I think that they could still do okay, and part of that is I'm just so not impressed by the Lakers, and I don't think they're a very good team. Now, LeBron or Davis can have a huge night anytime. Of course they can, but I lean toward the Timberwolves here, and I would also look at the under. So that's all the games on the slate for today. It's going to be interesting with all this COVID news. Appreciate you guys checking this out. Would love for you to hit me up with any questions or thoughts that you have on these games, anything I'm missing so that I can make the best picks possible too. I'd appreciate that. You can find me on Twitter at NBA Attack. It's just 1 A in the middle there, and would love to interact with you there. Also, give the video a like if you wouldn't mind. Appreciate you watching, and we'll see you for the next one.